Good morning, everyone. Kevin here from Skywatcher, and welcome to another episode of the What's Up Webcast. We do this every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here at the Skywatcher USA YouTube channel. We cover everything from what's up in the nighttime sky to equipment to helpful tips and tricks. And of course, at the end of the month, we have a special guest to talk about their specialty in the field of astronomy. So today is September 1st, 2023. We only have 3 more months. 3, 4, yeah, whatever, close enough. There's only a few months left of 2023. It's quite surprising that the year has flown by, but we definitely appreciate all of you who've watched and have grown with us on the webcast. If you like what you see here, please go ahead and leave a like on the video, subscribe. All the videos that you see here are generally live, and they are recorded afterwards, so you can go back and review any of the topics that we've covered here on the What's Up Webcast. And there is a bunch of educational stuff that we have on here, whether you're new to the hobby or you've been in the hobby for years. If you want to stay up to date with what's going on at Skywatch, you can head over to skywatcherusa.com and look up at the top and hit subscribe and save, and you can hop up onto our email blast, which keeps you up to date with all the new stuff coming out, any sales going on, or just what the topic for the What's Up Webcast for the week. Now, speaking of sales, just real quick, again, this is September 1st, so if you're watching this in the future, this sale is probably gone. But if you have not hopped over to the Skywatcher USA page, you can go get a Star Adventurer on sale right now as of this morning throughout the rest of September. The Star Adventurer series, the minis and the 2 eyes are all on sale. You can get them at a pretty nice little discount there, $100 off on the 2 eye Pro Pack. That's actually pretty good. If you're looking for a small companion mount to go with you for the October and April eclipses, the Star Adventures are where it's at. And now you can get them discounted if you're looking for something. So if you're looking for a small little tracker mount for either the eclipse or just a little thing to take around with you, or you want to get into nightscape photography, these are the mounts to do it with. You can hop over to skywatcherusa.com and order them direct, or you can go through your favorite dealer. They will all be on sale throughout the month of September, so go over and check that out. Another thing, if you want to support the channel, please head over to skywatcher.threadless.com. You can pick out shirts. There's all kinds of cool swag there to go with your Skywatcher product, or just rep the brand and make it look cool. We've got all kinds of fun stuff up there, so go over to skywatcher.threadless.com and you can pick up some Skywatcher swag. All of that actually goes to supporting the channel as well and lets us know that we're doing a good job and that we should keep going. So some other fun stuff there. Lastly, really quick, just in the announcement side of things, October 14th is the annular solar eclipse that's going through the U.S. and, yeah, most of the U.S. It'll be a partial eclipse through most of North America, but if you're on the path. But if you're looking for somewhere to go, especially if you're local here to the west, we are doing Seoul again. Most of the vendors won't be there this year because they're going to be out doing other stuff for the eclipses. But I will be there. We'll be running that event. If you want to come by, there'll be all kinds of Skywatcher stuff there. We'll have solar telescopes of all different kinds. You can come check that out. And, of course, you can watch the partial eclipse by about 87% covered, somewhere in there. If you can come out and check that out as well. And if you want to be a part of it and bring your own gear, go ahead and let us know. You can go to focusastro.org/Seoul and check that out. One more thing that I'd just like to let people know, I know these are my events, but one thing that's actually coming up, you can actually go over to events and public programs. Here's all the public events that were coming out over the next month or two. But September 23rd, I will be at the Earth and Space Expedition Center, which is where we're also hosting Seoul. But we're going to be doing a telescope help class on the 23rd from 2 to 4:30. So if you know someone in the Phoenix area who has a telescope or needs a refresher, have them come on out to that. The class is, I believe, $15. And that actually covers not only the class, but you also get a ticket to go throughout the entire museum, and then you can come back that night for stargazing, where you could bring your telescope and apply everything that you learned during the telescope help class. So if you know someone who needs help and they're in the Phoenix area, September 23rd, it's a Saturday, we'll be doing a telescope help class, so you can learn how to use your equipment a little bit more. But anyway, that's just some of the announcements there. We're going to go ahead and get started with what's going on in the nighttime sky for the month of September. So first off, let's start with the brightest thing in the nighttime sky, the moon. New moon is September 14th. We're not too far away from there. So if you're planning a dark sky outing for the month of September, that's going to be the 16th and 17th. We'll just have a very thin little crescent on those days. So that'll be a great weekend to get out and do some viewing. It's still Milky Way season, so you can get some nice views of the Milky Way. But by the end of the month, we're going to be cruising into fall. So officially, yay! Still be hot here in Phoenix, but we are heading into fall, which is exciting. So the 16th and 17th is going to be your dark sky weekend for the month of September. Now, full moon is September 29th at the end of the month. And this is probably one of the most famous full moons in the entire year, and that's the harvest moon. The harvest moon is generally in September. It can go into October depending. And usually this moon is marked with the time to harvest crops before the coming fall and winter seasons approach. And this also was a great time to harvest crops because the full moon provided enough light to harvest those crops into the evening hours. So September 29th is the harvest moon. Great time to get out there and observe it. So you can go ahead and do that as well. Now, planets. We are back into planet season finally. It's been kind of a quiet summer in terms of planets. But let me bring up Stellarium. Stellarium is a free app that you can download. It's a planetarium program. It's actually quite nice. And you can even control telescopes with it if you have the right connections. But right now, this is tonight at just after 8 o'clock. You can see the Milky Way is nice and high if you're in a dark sky location. But we have Saturn. Saturn has made its way back into the evening sky. Was observing it earlier this week, and it's pretty good. The rings are starting to close up a bit, as Saturn does. So they're kind of in, it's kind of hard, but they're kind of in this position. I don't even know why I'm showing you, because I could just zoom in and show you how the position of the rings is. But as you can see, Saturn's rings are kind of closing up, and they'll do that throughout the next couple years until they go edge on, and then it opens back up again. And that's about an 11-year cycle for Saturn to have its rings open and close like that. But you still get a really nice view. You can see the bright moon Titan, and in larger telescopes, you can see the collection of other moons that are around Saturn. But just after sundown, Saturn is starting to make its approach into the nighttime sky again. So if you're looking to get back into observing the planets, Saturn's back. Now, later in the evening, we do have Jupiter is starting to rise, and that's about 10 o'clock is when Jupiter starts to break the horizon in the early part of the month. Now, as the month continues on, those will get higher and higher. Let me pop this up a little bit more. There we go. It's going to start getting higher and higher, allowing Saturn and Jupiter. There's going to be a close. We actually just had a close a conjunction of the full blue moon and Saturn the other night. But we'll have another close approach with the two of them. This will be on September 26th. It won't be quite full, but it'll be a waxing gibbous phase, and Saturn will be right there. But towards the end of the month, let's pop it in about 9 o'clock. We'll have Saturn nice and high, and Jupiter will be visible by the end of September. So the planets are now coming, which is kind of nice, especially if you do outreach events. So if you're doing outreach events for schools in the fall season, we'll have some really cool stuff, as well as Halloween. Halloween is like 8 weeks from now. It's also probably one of the best holidays to actually bust a telescope out and share a view of the planets for trick-or-treaters. So I've done that before. It's kind of a fun thing to do. So anyway, that is that is September for planets. Now, as the nights get later and later. Yeah, those are going to be two of our major planets, but Uranus and Neptune are floating around in here somewhere. I'll have to look them up. But Saturn and Jupiter are going to be back in the nighttime sky by the end of the month together. So that will be kind of cool to have. So let me bounce back to the first. There we go. Too early. And September, whoops. There we go. That's fine. So, boop. There we go. So planets. The sun is also heating up. Well, it's always hot on the sun, obviously. But the activity on the sun is starting to kick up quite a bit more. You can always go over and to Gong. Let me bring this up real quick. This is it right here, the NSO website. You can actually just type in Gong, G-O-N-G, H alpha into Google, and this will pop up. But as you can see, there's been some detail going on up there. This is from 2 days ago, but there's some nice sunspots, some good filaments. Big, this is like a crown filament down here, although it's on the southern pole of the sun, so I don't think it's called a crown. Crown is normally when it's up top on the northern pole. But there's some really nice detail around there. It's going to make the eclipses coming up really interesting because of how active the sun is actually getting. So that'll be kind of a cool thing to witness there. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. See what it looks like in white light. There we go. Not as much going on in white light. You can see we have some large sunspots, 3413, 3415. Then there's some sprinklings of some smaller stuff off across the disk, but the sun's activity has been really kicking up lately, so it'll be a really cool time to get out and start observing the sun, which is appropriate because October 14th we have the annular eclipse, and April of next year we have the total solar eclipse. By the way, if you're looking for solar equipment, please be very patient with our friends, either at Lunt or Daystar, whoever you're buying stuff from. This is what they kind of plan for these eclipses. And this time we have 2 back-to-back eclipses. So please be understanding that your stuff might get delayed. I don't know anything about what they're doing right now, but I've worked with companies during eclipse seasons, and people just get crazy when it comes to getting glasses on time or any type of filter. So please don't be one of those people that are giving them a hard time when they are literally trying to punch out as much stuff as possible and fulfill orders as much as possible. That's why I've been saying for the last couple months that if you need a solar filter or something, to get it immediately, because you don't want to be one of those people that wait to the last minute and then you're freaking out because you can't get anything. There is still time to get stuff, particularly for the April eclipse. The total eclipse, you have plenty of time to get it unless you want something specialized like a narrowband H alpha. But if you're trying to get stuff by the annular eclipse, which is just over a month from now, you're really stretching it to try and get stuff on time, especially if you want something in particular. But white light filters should be fairly easy to get. But as we start approaching that 2-week window, please don't be one of these people that wait to the last minute and then giving our friends a hard time. It happens every year, but don't be one of those people. That's like waiting till Christmas Eve to go buy a gift and then being upset that they don't have it. So you've known. So meteor showers. So the big meteor shower of the year takes place in August. That's the Perseid meteor shower. And I hope some of you got some really cool stuff from that. But this month, technically the Perseids do push into this month. But there's no major meteor showers that are actually happening in the month of September. There's just not a lot going on. But we do have some trailing Perseids. And then, of course, next month we have the Orionids meteor shower, which can start to kick up towards the tail end of September. But September doesn't have any of its own meteor showers that peak during the month of September. There's no major ones, at least. Comets. Comets are always coming and going, doing all kinds of cool stuff. But there's a lot of talk about some comets going on right now. So we're going to go over to cometchasing.skyhound.com. They've added these YouTube videos now, which is quite nice. So there's some cool stuff that's coming up. There's this newly discovered comet C2023P1 has become kind of an interesting one. And that was literally just discovered on August 11th, actually. So there's some cool stuff floating out there. And if you want to see what comets are visible where, you can pop down here and see it. So let's see for this one, C2023P1. Looks like we're going into Gemini. Okay, it's starting to become more visible in the northern hemisphere, but it's low. But it's a morning comet, so you need to be one of these morning observers to go out and see. Let's see where it is. Okay, so it's kind of skirting into Gemini a bit. But yeah, that'll be a fun one to go check out. I haven't even tried to find it yet, so I'll have to give that a go. And then there's a bunch of other ones that are obviously coming up as well. But you can go to cometchasing.skyhound.com and you want to definitely take a look at what comets are coming up. This gives you an idea of what comets are either visible right now or what comets are going to be interesting as time goes on. So we want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on this, especially if you're into photographing or imaging or observing comets. This is the website to go to. But these new YouTube videos are actually quite nice. You can learn about different comets that are up for the month. So head over there and check it out. It's definitely worthwhile. Deep sky targets. Let's see. Can you tell SynScan people not to make the sun viewing confirmation math problem? That's so hard. I'm having to break out a calculator. Yes. When you try to open up the sun as a target on SynScan, there's generally a math problem on there, and they're usually just addition problems, but they use some strange combos of numbers. I have to break out a calculator too, to be quite honest, to get it all to start running and playing nice, because I'm not going to sit there and figure it all out. I just want to do it. But it's a safety procedure, and yeah, that's just like we put tags on, say, don't look at the sun. You'd be amazed how many people try to look at the sun without the proper equipment. Please do not ever observe the sun without the proper filters. And if you don't know what you're doing, then you can come out to Seoul on October 14th and learn all about how to observe the sun safely during an eclipse. So check it out. Okay, let's talk about some deep sky targets that are up for the month. Let's see, M13. M13 is one of the major globular clusters that are visible generally in the summertime. It's still sitting nice and high in the early evening hours, about 25,000 light years away, about 175 light years in diameter. You can see this in almost any sky condition. It may look like a little fuzzball from your backyard, but during a dark sky outing, even in small telescope, it'll look like a very pronounced cluster. Even in a pair of binoculars, it looks like a diffuse object in the star field. Globular clusters are actually very interesting for imagers because they're relatively easy targets to work with, because they're not really affected to light pollution too much. You can actually get some really nice images with it, and you don't have to fight with gradients, because you do have to fight with gradients when you're editing your images, but it's not as harmful to the image because there's not so much diffuse detail in a globular cluster, unlike a nebula, where a light pollution gradient can really wreak havoc on the image. Globular clusters, being a dense ball of stars, are much more pronounced to where those gradients really don't affect it all that much. But M13 is an awesome cluster. It's a great outreach target. You're talking about 1 million stars. It's the largest visible globular cluster in the northern hemisphere, only topped by Omega Centauri, which is in the southern hemisphere and barely breaks the horizon even here in Phoenix at about 33 degrees latitude. It's not high enough to really showcase that much. But it's a cool object to take a look at. And M13 is a good one as well. M27, it's a nice planetary. This is the Dumbbell Nebula. It's up in Vulpecca. It's not far from the bright star Albireo near Cygnus, about 9,800 light years away from the Earth. This one's a fun one as well. It's not quite as defined as the Ring Nebula, M57, which is in Lyra, which is a much easier one, personally, to actually see in a light-polluted location. M27 gets a little bit more diffuse, and while it is visible from light polluted skies, it can be a bit harder to get a good view of it unless you're in darker locations, where the Ring Nebula, which isn't too far away from M27, also up about the same time, you can really get that in a light polluted location. Looks like a little smoky Cheerio hanging out in the sky there, but you can pretty much get it in any major size telescope, like 4-inch or bigger. You can really get a decent view of it. If you want to pop that out, you can do the UHC or the O3 filters are really good visually. Imaging, you can easily do M27 from in town or dark skies. It also does really good in HA or O3 for narrowband. Let's see, wasn't the first... yes, M27 was the first totem target, and it wasn't so much that M27 itself was the target, it was the O3 wings of M27, which are quite difficult to get unless you have a really nice isolated image of them using narrowband O3. So it's a bit of a challenge. We probably won't be doing any more totem targets where we're looking for you to capture a certain detail within a popular target. We had some issues with that one, and some people saying they got it and it wasn't quite there. So any future totem targets, it's just going after the target itself. So we try to make the target more difficult, but we'll probably avoid saying, oh, you should go image M57, the Ring Nebula, and try to actually capture the outer halo of the Ring Nebula, because then we just get a bunch of images of people sending us the Ring Nebula, which is way too easy. So most totem targets moving forward, we probably won't be asking you to capture the detail of a certain object. We'll just have you capture the object and not worry about it. M4 and M22 are brighter than M13. M4... that's probably correct. I don't have the magnitudes in front of me. I find M13 to be more of a wow factor than M4. M4 doesn't have as dense of a central core as M13. It does have this really cool like halo of stars, like a line through the middle. M22 is a very nice cluster. It's really overlooked, but it's fantastic in dark sky sites. But I find M13 tends to be the easier of the bunch because it's really easy to find. It's nice and high in the sky, and it's just very dense. But M4 and M22 should be brighter than M13. Noted. Let's see. So that's M27 right there, the Dumbbell Nebula. It's a very easy target to go after, both visually and imaging. Next one is NGC 7000, the North American Nebula in Cygnus. This is a humongous nebula. It is quite large. It's several times the size of the full moon. It's a large emission region, and there's a ton of nebulosity even around this nebula itself. There's a lot more going on there than just NGC 7000. Now, the trick for one of these, for this nebula in particular, visually, is dark skies, and an O3 filter will work, H beta will work, UHC filters work. All that is doable, but the thing here is aperture helps. Like, I've seen this in my old 16-inch, my old 20-inch, and my 28-inch Dobbs, but they only get a portion of the nebula. I actually find that short focal length refractors or any telescope, quite honestly, that's probably 800 millimeters or shorter, with a low power eyepiece, is going to give you about the 3-degree field of view that you want to get to encompass the entire North American nebula. So what I actually like to do with this one is I'll use probably my Esprit 100, or something similar to that. I'll put a 30 something or 40 millimeter eyepiece, and then put a UHC or 03 or H beta filter in there in a dark sky site, because they're low surface brightness for this nebula. And you should be able to pop it out. It's also fantastic in H alpha, with a night vision eyepiece. You can actually just look up at the sky with a night vision monocular and an H alpha filter in front of it, and it's clear as day even from the middle of town. So it's a very cool object in night vision if you have the chance to check that out. Imaging, this is a very easy target to do for imaging. This shot right here was actually shot in my backyard with a Canon 200-2.8 lens and a monochrome CCD camera with an H alpha filter. That's all you really need. This is a very large emission nebula, so modern day cameras can easily pop it out. It does good in one-shot color. It does good in LRGB, and it's a fantastic target in narrowband. You can do just black and white H alpha like you see here. You can do bicolor with H alpha and 03, or you could even do a Hubble palette with HA 03 and S2. It really just depends on what exactly you're trying to find and show in this. But the North American nebula is a fun target, and all of the surrounding nebulas are very impressive too. But probably where most of the structure in this nebula sits is the wall, and the wall is this section right here. And that's probably the easiest portion to see of the nebula as well, because you have the Gulf region right here, but the wall is what this structure right here is primarily called. That's a lot of the times what you're looking for. So I've talked about these over the last couple months as well. You have the Palomar clusters. The majority of them are up right now, usually a little bit late in the summer into fall. You can pretty much get all the Palomar clusters in one night if you wanted to. Now, there are 15 of them total, but they are quite a challenge on some of them. Some of them are a lot easier than others. Some of them are really obvious in a telescope. I think like Palomar 8, which is up in the Sagittarius region, is fairly easy to catch. But then you get other ones like Palomar 13, which are incredibly difficult to see unless you have a 20-odd inch or bigger instrument, or you know exactly where you're looking for. But the Palomar clusters are kind of fun because it's a very small catalog, only 15 of them, and you can easily try to track them down in the course of one nice dark sky outing with a decent-sized telescope. But some of these are very easy. Other ones are quite difficult, require a lot of magnification and careful observation. Imaging wise, they're globular clusters. They're really nothing special, because your cameras are easily going to be able to resolve some of these things. Some of them will be more challenging, like the fainter, more diffuse ones like 13 and 14. Palomar 5 is also that way, but they're a fun catalog to go after because they are a off the beaten path collection of objects. So you can go over, check out the Palomar clusters if you want to kind of get yourself out of the Messier NGC catalogs and step into something a little bit more challenging. Try the Palomar clusters out. Like I said, there's only 15 of them, so it's not a very elaborate catalog. But there's some cool challenging clusters inside of there as well. Now, with fall coming, we do have some new constellations coming up in the nighttime sky, one of them being Pegasus as well as Andromeda. In Pegasus, right at the head of Pegasus is M15. This is a nice, dense, globular cluster. It's kind of like a mini M13 because it also sits between two bright stars, except one's blue and one's orange, which you can see in this image. You're looking about 35,000 light years away for this one. It does well in town. Obviously, dark skies are going to be better, and more aperture is always helpful. Imaging wise, however, this is kind of a cool target because there's this nebula dust cloud that's hanging out in there. That's Integrated Flux Nebula, or IFN as it's known. So that's actually going through the field. I had no idea when I shot this image that that was even there, but this was taken from the remote site at a Bortle 2 sky, and this is not a combination of like I normally do where I'll do luminance and color. This is just a strictly one-shot color image, and the cameras are so sensitive that they actually picked up this IFN in the region. So if you're going out to dark sky sites, give M15 a shot. I understand the cluster is easy. You don't need dark skies to capture a good image of M15, but if you want to get M15 with the IFN floating through the field, it might be worth checking out because there's some pretty cool stuff floating around in there that we haven't been able to really get until these modern cameras like the 533, the 571, and the 455 similar chips out there. What causes globular clusters is that the result of forming large stellar nursery. Some of the clusters, particularly like Omega Centauri and Omega Centauri, they actually think is the remnants of a small dwarf galaxy that the Milky Way consumed, and that is the remainder of it. There's even thoughts that M13 could be that way as well. Smaller globular clusters, I would have to look up and see what the theories are on their formation. But the larger globular clusters, there are thoughts that they are remnants of dwarf galaxies. M15, again, easy in town, great outreach target. It's also visible in dark sky sites. More aperture always makes it look more whoa. But imaging wise, I think the challenge here would be to get the Integrated Flux Nebula. So that would be really kind of cool. Of course, now that we're moving into autumn, Andromeda is back. This is the galaxy that starts everyone down the dark path of observing galaxies. This is obviously the constellation of Andromeda, 2.5 million light years away. Andromeda is a really fun target. Visually, you can see from the backyard is a little fuzzy. More aperture is going to start to show you some of these spiral dust lanes towards the core, and particularly this band right here and this band. You can start to see them in moderate skies. I know that was the big thing when I first got my first big Dob, moving from my 10-inch Dob to my 16-inch Dob. That was the first thing that I noticed when I saw Andromeda in a larger aperture scope, was the amount of detail I could see in the dust lanes really starts to pop. But Andromeda is pretty cool. In a dark sky site, I actually think the best way to observe Andromeda is with a pair of binoculars, like 50 or 70 millimeter, because you see how large the galaxy actually is in the sky. When we look at it through a telescope, you don't really get an idea of just how big the galaxy is. Obviously, for most of us, the arms kind of jet out away from the center of the field and out of the eyepiece. You can't see the whole thing. But if you have a really low power, wide field of view, you can really get the justice of how big Andromeda actually is in the sky. It's a fantastic galaxy to check out. And it also has a big collection of globular clusters if you have a high enough resolution imaging system, which really isn't much nowadays, like 1,000 millimeters with, one of these 3.8 micron cameras, you can start to pick out globular clusters. That might even be next month's challenge, possibly. But we'll see. But yeah, Andromeda galaxy is a very cool galaxy this time of year. Great in dark skies. You can actually see it naked eye if you're in dark enough skies. Imaging wise, one-shot color does really well. Obviously, standard monochrome LRGB is nice. If you are doing monochrome, I would also say add some H-alpha data into that mix, because there is a lot of star-forming regions within M31, and those come out through H-alpha. So add some of that. It's going to look like these little pearls of red going through Andromeda, but it's pretty cool. And then if you have a wide enough field of view, there's also hydrogen clouds that are in the same region. So it might be kind of cool to have that in there as well. Wow, you guys have lots of questions. I live at 32 degrees latitude, and right after the rain clears out the dust, Omega Centauri is doable. That's cool. Let's see. What's the best filter for one-shot color imaging of M31? Most one-shot color cameras have an UV IR window already. That's why when you get a one-shot color camera, a lot of times if you look at the optical window that sits in front of the sensor, it's like got this blue-purple look to it. That's a UV IR coating. UHC can be doable, or... So here's the thing. There's not really a lot of filters that help out with galaxies. There just isn't. You can get away with broadband filters because really what you need to try and do is eliminate or reduce the light pollution. So UHC could work. It is a broadband filter. You could give that a shot. I would probably go with something like an L Pro from Optolong, or the best one that I think is out there is the one from Chroma, which is the low glow filter. That I think is the best general light pollution filter out there. Chroma makes some really nice filters. But yeah, there's Chroma's low glow. There's the L Pro. There's the CLS filter from Astronomic. But you really just need a general light pollution filter to help kind of reduce the gradients and light pollution that are actually going on. There's nothing you can really do for the galaxy itself. Next one, I'm using a SAGTI mount to control my DSLR to image the solar eclipses and want to take pics every 1 minute. Do I have to use the SynScan app to be able to set my shutter speed to 1/1000th? Usually to shoot something that quick, if I remember correctly, you have to just set that in the camera itself. And then you would just use the mount to trigger every 1 minute or so. You could also use an intervalometer if you want control as well. But in the SynScan app, you can tell it to trigger every 60 seconds. I don't know if it could go down to 1/1000th, so you might need to drop it low and then just set that exposure in the camera itself. Is there instructional video on how to set the SCGTI for solar? There is not. That's not a bad idea, though. We'll see what we can do on that. We've been talking about doing these little videos, and that might be a good one to start because it's a very quick little thing, and we can adjust for it. So that's Andromeda. If you've got a dark sky outing, you should go out and check it out, and we will go from there. Let's dig into some of the fall targets, especially some weird ones. Sharpless 155, the Cave Nebula. This is basically in the constellation of Cepheus. Now, Cepheus is basically a massive cloud of dust. There's all kinds of really interesting, exotic, off the beaten path nebulas in this constellation. So if you're heading to a dark sky and you want something off the beaten path, pull up a map of Cepheus and just start looking at all the crazy nebulas. There's a lot of, very dusty, dirty, dark nebulas in Cepheus. It's probably my favorite constellation for imagers because there's so much going on. So this is the Cave Nebula, Sharpless 155. It's rather large, so you can, and there's some really cool detail in there, and you can try it with various focal lengths as well to help isolate certain regions or go larger and get, bigger images of the sky. This is about 2,400 light years away. Visually, this is quite a challenging target. Probably a UHC is what I would approach this with, but you're really going to have to put some aperture on it. The only time I've actually seen the Cave Nebula is with my 28-inch Dob, the night vision, and an H-alpha filter. Then it's clear as day at that point. But it's a lot of money right there to have to pull out a nebula. But it's a challenge for visual. For imaging, One-shot colors would work, especially I would probably, if I was imaging from home, particularly the Cave Nebula, I would use a one-shot color and then use one of these multi-band, narrow-band filters like an Antlia dual band, which is 5 nanometer HA03. That would be really nice. Of course, if you're using fast optics like a Hyperstar or Rasa, you'd probably want to get the shifted ones. So try that out. Or narrowband. Narrowband does really good on emission targets, and the Cave Nebula is good with that. This is another one. This is from the remote observatory, actually. It's just H-alpha. It's a 5 nanometer chroma filter in that telescope, and the detail looks pretty good. That's the nice thing about H-alpha, though, is you can also do this from home, and the H-alpha filters pretty much annihilate anything. So that's the Cave Nebula. You can see there's all kinds of really intricate dark detail in there. This isn't even a very long set of exposures either, but something kind of cool to check out. That's the Cave Nebula. Another one of my favorites, especially for the fall, is IC 59 and 63. Gamma Cass Nebula is what it's also known, or Ghost of Cassiopeia, about 610 light years out. I have seen this visually. It was in a C14 from really dark skies. I don't know if it was the mix of aperture and the focal length that brought it out, because I've tried this even in my 28, and I still think the C14 image was better. And I have to think that maybe because the magnification or just the conditions were better that night. I'm not sure. But one of the best views I've had of this, and it was faint, was with a C14. So dark skies are really needed. I didn't use a filter for that either. Just straight, visual with the eye. But a decent sized telescope, I would say at least a 10 inch, probably minimum. But the more aperture you can throw on it. But the bright star there, Gamma Cass, which is the central star of Cassiopeia, adds glare to it, so you want to be aware of how to handle that. So a telescope that's got good baffling would probably be good with that as well to reduce any glare, but larger apertures are going to help. Imaging wise, one-shot color is fine, narrowband is fine. I don't think there's a lot of S2 in this particular region, so bicolor is probably what you'd want to do. This is just H-alpha where it's very prominent, but I've tried to do HA03, so a bicolor image, and it comes out pretty cool as well. And that's something you can do from the backyard or with a one-shot color camera. So that's it for... There's tons of deep sky targets this time of year, but now we're going to move over to target of the month. So Totem, we've been doing this for a year now. We started in August of 2022. So now we're officially a year into doing Totem. We only have a few months left for the 2023 patch. The 2024 patches are currently in development right now, and they're going to look pretty cool. We'll probably showcase that in December when we'll show that new patch off, but you can collect them all. The 2022 patches, because we only did it August, September, October, and November, there's only 4 months worth of objects, so only 4 targets in 2022. So the 2022 patches are quite rare. There's not a lot of them out there. There's the 2023s are more common, and I'm sure 2024 will be there as well. Some of the rules. This is imaging only because we actually need to know that you did it. So there's not a visual. There's not a visual version of this, unfortunately. You can email your stuff to totem@skywatchusa.com. You must provide your name, equipment, image specifications, mailing address, US and Canada only, and the FIT file or any RAW file. I did get a few entries that only provided the FIT file, which is fine. You'll be getting your patch, but if you only send a FIT file, I can't include your image in the webcast episode. So if you don't see your image, it's because I didn't get a JPEG or a PNG file with your email. So if you want your images to be shared on the webcast, you need to provide an image that we can share. The FIT file or RAW file, we need to know to make sure that you actually took the data within the month. that this was done and didn't just use old data. We're going to be adding, it's not a new rule, but we're going to be adding a new request to this. We'd like to share some of your images each month on our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, whatever else we use. So if you have a social media handle, we would like you to please include that in your entries so we can connect you with it. And that way, when we share your images, we will send that. We want to tag you in that. So please make sure to include your tags or handles in there for your social media accounts, and when we share these images, we'll try to grab you and throw it in there. Here's the 2023 patch. This is actually what you're going to get when you enter, as long as you've met all the criteria. This is what you will be getting in the mail. Everyone who sent in their the July one, our team was traveling. All the patches for July have shipped. We're getting the August list ready to go. So those of you in August will be getting your patches in the next few weeks. So here's some of our entries for 2023, August 2023. We did the Seahorse Nebula, Barnard 150. We'll probably be doing a lot of these really dusty, gritty targets because they're challenging. But here's our submissions. Thank you for everyone who took part in it. There was a ton of you this month. So you all did a really nice job, especially because it's been super hot and challenging. This is a cool one. I actually need to try this because the Seahorse is right next to the Flying Bat in the Squid Nebula. So Kevin here did a really cool job using his 135 lens to catch those two, which would be really cool from darker skies to get more detail. But yeah, there was some really nice entries this month. So we appreciate all of you who sent that in. If you don't see your image in here, it's because I didn't get a JPEG in your email or something that I can share. You'll still get the patch because I can check the FIT files or the RAW files, but it makes it very difficult to add those types of files and present them in the way that you want them presented. So, but I definitely appreciate everyone entering this month. I think we had over 20 entries just this month, so good job to all of you guys. So this one's a really interesting one. I like how ethereal it came out. Now there is some H alpha detail in here, so if you're gonna image this later, you can add some hydrogen to your shots there and bring that out. Yes, there was a galaxy in here. You need to be wider. Yeah, this guy right here. The nice face-on galaxy. I don't know which one it is. I would have to plate solve it and find out which galaxy that actually is. Go through some of these real quick. There we go. But yeah, you all did a very nice job, especially considering this is a fairly challenging little target. But it's a fun one to go after. But thanks for everyone who took part in it, especially because it is rather difficult to get it. This one's cool. I'm a big fan of diffraction spikes. I know I would be burned at the stake by some of you for saying that, but yeah, those are our entries for August 2023. So continuing on with the theme of dark and dusty, September 2023, we're going to continue on with that, and now we are doing the Shark Nebula. The Shark Nebula is it LDN 1235, I believe. Shark Nebula. I should know this. Yep, LDN. So Lima, David, Nancy, 1235. This is also up in Cepheus, and it's another. This one's kind of a mix of stuff because it's a dark nebula. It's got some reflection detail in there. This was shot at 1,000 millimeters at full frame. I would probably have chosen to go wider because it does extend quite a bit, or frame it on the long axis of the frame instead. But yeah, if you can go wide field on this and get there's a lot of dust in this region. So if you can go wider and get that extent of the star field even more, that'd be really cool just for some ideas. But yeah, the Shark Nebula is kind of a cool one. This one is one of those blended shots that I've done where I do luminance and one shot color. Really deep luminance, if you've got time to do it, is the trick to get all this little hazy stuff back in there. Is just really deep luminance and then apply your color on top of that, or just do black and white. That's actually what I will be doing moving forward. Is I'm a big fan of just shooting a target in black and white. I kind of like that old school like glass plate image style. But that is our target for the month, LDN 1235. It's in Cepheus. You can go over to skywatchusa.com. Here, I'll even show you how to find it. So go over to skywatchusa.com, media, target of the month, and there it is with all the detail and your RA and deck. So give that a go. It should be quite an interesting target. I'm curious to see how you guys work with that. All right, everyone, that's pretty much it for this week. If you like what you see here, please go ahead and subscribe. Leave a like on a video. Info@skywatchusa.com. If you have any ideas for the What's Up webcast, you can title it What's Up. Our team, if you happen to be in Manhattan next week, is going to the B&H Build Expo. We will be there with several products there. You can say hi to Alex and Jared. They'll be there representing Skywatcher, so stop by and say hi. They'll be at the Javits Center for the B&H Build Expo next week. So go ahead and check that out. There's also going to be a ton of photography stuff there. It should be quite cool. I'm a little jealous that I'm not going. But go ahead and check that out. We definitely appreciate you hanging out with us. Again, if you want to support the channel a little bit more, please go over to skywatcher.threadless.com. Pick up some cool swag there. If you want to enjoy these What's Up webcasts in the car, each one has been pushed over to a podcast format. So you can also listen to this via the podcast format in any way, shape, or form that you get your podcasts, wherever you get it from, whether it's Apple Podcast or however you find it. Go ahead and check that out. But that is pretty much it for the month. For September night skies. I hope you guys have a great month trying to find all that. Next week, we're going to be doing a really interesting talk. This presentation was actually given at the Ontario Starfest a couple weeks ago. This is product development from concept to completion. We're actually going to talk about how products go through the development process and even show you some ideas that never made it under the Skywatcher brand. And it's an interesting thing because a lot of people don't get to see this side of the business. You just get to see the completed products. But I'm going to kind of bring you in and show you how this process goes. And what I would ask of you guys, because I wanted to do this in person, but I wasn't able to make it in Canada, is come up with some ideas of things that you would like to see, and we'll talk about them during next week's webcast episode. And I'll actually show you how you can take these ideas and what product development teams actually go through and analyze an idea to be like, yeah, that sounds interesting, or no, that's not going to work for reasons A, B, and C, whatever the case may be. But we're going to do product development from concept to completion and take you on a little bit of a ride to show you exactly how products come to reality or why a product never became a reality. And you'll probably be surprised on some of the projects that we're going to show you that never made it to the production line. And I think you'll be surprised with some of the hidden projects that Skywatcher has actually done. Some of you probably be excited to see some of them, but there's a reason why they never became a production item. But you'll get to see some behind the scenes stuff that we haven't ever shown publicly. So we'll be happy to show you guys that next week. Your homework is to have a couple different ideas and pitch them during the webcast like we do in a product development meeting. We all come up with some ideas. We sit down. We'd like to see this. We'd like to see that. And then over time, they get filtered and they evolve into the products that you guys see today. And some of you even own some of those products where other things just didn't make it. All right, everyone, that's pretty much it. Let's see. There's a question here. Can I modify the image by trimming stars so they only outline a swimmer about to... sure, why not? Get artistic. So, good luck with that, Lord Helmet. But thank you, everybody, for watching. We will see you next week. I'm actually looking forward to next week's episode. It should be kind of a fun one. But bring some ideas, because that was the way this talk was actually engineered, was to have people pitch ideas, and we'll show you how things get shot down or things move ahead. But that's it for September night skies. Don't burn up out there. It's still hot. And we'll see you guys very soon, and we'll see you next Friday. Clear skies. Have a safe weekend, and we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye.